So, once again, Marvel attempts to get us excited about something going on in the MCU by saying a lot of cool stuff is coming up next. And while I'm usually in favor of that, I think it's one of their best strategies. I think that the things that were set up here are so sloppy and make no sense that I not only don't think it works, but the X-Men stuff, as a major X-Men fan, makes me kind of angry. And we're gonna break that all down. I'm actually very angry about it. So unfair. And I also think because it's so comics inaccurate, that's another reason that I think I'm having trouble processing it. Other times you're like, it's right out of the comics, awesome. But here you're like, what are you doing? I mean, I'm sorry Kevin Feige hates the Inhumans so much, but it's getting to the point of ridiculousness how much he's willing to destroy to avoid putting them in the MCU. He's like, I'll take down the X-Men. There ain't no way I'm putting the Inhumans in here. And you're like, why? I mean, I love Kamala Khan, but she's not an X-Men. Don't mess up the X-Men, man. Like, this is how the X-Men are introduced into the MCU main timeline, not with a bang, but with a whimper, through a back door as an assist to help a struggling character who has had nothing to do with the X-Men in the comics up to this point. She doesn't even hang out with them. That's 2 X-Men references in the MCU so far, plus one horribly cruel fake out. And so far, all Feige has gotten right is the damn theme song. I don't know why he's so hooked on that theme song. I mean, it does give people the nostalgia feels, but it's the least. I don't think anyone's gonna be like, hey man, at least the theme song is here. I don't care what else you do to the X-Men, as long as I hear the do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I hear it, I'm triggered that something bad is gonna happen to the X-Men, quite frankly. I wonder if there's gonna be an announcement at Comic-Con because of this. I mean, the X-Men are now officially on the board, but I mean, come on, slow your roll, Feige. You haven't even gotten the Fantastic Four yet. So that's another thing. Like, come on, man. Don't mess with us X-Men fans. We've suffered enough, and we were hoping for the MCU to finally get it right. But this so far is really not encouraging. All right, so, I mean, they're not spackle to just fit into the cracks where you need help in the MCU. They're supposed to be their whole own corner of the MCU. All right, so let's talk about the 2 major. I feel bad for those of you who love Kamala Khan and don't really care about the X-Men. I'm sorry, but I love the X-Men so much, I'm just very upset. All right, so let's talk about these 2 major developments at the end of the episode before we touch on the rest of the season finale, which certainly had some amazing moments, but let's not kid ourselves, it was all about these 2 major developments. So do I think we'll get a Ms. Marvel season 2 to further explore these developments? No, I do not, because the ratings for this show are so bad. And I don't think that they're going to dramatically improve, because literally it's the last 20 minutes of the show that all this big stuff happens, and it's not like you can go back and rewatch the rest of the show and see new things. You're like, now I get what you were referencing, because these things come out of nowhere and make no sense. So people will certainly now talk about the show, and I think there will probably be some interest in Kamala Khan moving forward, but I would be surprised if they brought this show back. But Kamala Khan, she's already appearing on the new Disney cruise ship, and quite frankly, I thought she was awesome there, although now I'm like, is she supposed to be an X-Men? Doesn't work. She's in the upcoming The Marvels movie, which they already teased at the very end here. And so she definitely has a future in the MCU, and now I'm thinking maybe she'll be in whatever X-Men movie or show that they do, which does not work for me. And let me tell you why. So Bruno tells Kamala that he took a closer look at her genetics because her brother asked him if he could have powers too. Why not just put the bracelet on and be like, let's see what happens, man. I don't know why he had to go and get all sciencey, but he's like, that's my thing. I did think it was funny when Kamala said, I told you to call me when you're bored. But anyway, Bruno says he found a mutation. And then you hear a few bars of the X-Men theme. Do-do-do-do-do. And I was like, oh no. Did Bruno just discover mutants? I can't believe that's where they came up. Maybe they'll change it so that mutants aren't in Westchester, but California. I mean, Marvel has already decided their stories are too New York City centric, which is why Moon Knight was moved to London, Oscar Isaac revealed. So I wouldn't be surprised if the X-Men are in California. They're very California-y, to be honest with you. And Bruno can maybe discover more mutants when he goes to Caltech. Maybe he can write a paper on it. That's how the mutants come in here. They're an extra credit project. But I don't know. I think I wouldn't mind Bruno getting the credit. You know, Lord knows he deserves a consolation prize after yet another humiliation this episode. He's the Kite Man of Ms. Marvel. And Kite Man's getting his own show, so I hope that we see more of Bruno. But the X-Men are their own thing. Their powers come from their mutations and only their mutations. I know some of you will be like, well, actually, Ilyana can access like a hell dimension. And it's like, it's very rare. And that's certainly not how her character started out, right? And don't worry, I'm going to address that too. But anyway, for like 99% of the time, you might be like, well, this is the 1%. Come on. All right. So anyway, X-Men get their powers from their mutations. Kamala Khan clearly gets her powers from the Noor dimension. Her great-grandmother had these powers, and Cameron gets these powers. Are all three of them mutants? And even if they are, mutant powers are not inherited. Every single mutant, even if they're related, has a unique power set. There can be similarities, but they all differ in some way. And then, so Cameron could not, how could he have the exact same power set? It makes no sense. Also, if Kamala Khan is a mutant, then what was the point of the Noor dimension? You don't need it. Or anything that was explored in this entire season with her moving backstory, which I thought was great. I mean, it negates the thing that her grandmother said about how her great-grandmother and her husband, the love of a human and a Noor, came together to create something much bigger than either of them could have created alone. Mutants? I mean, that was a beautiful speech last episode, and now the whole thing is just moot. It was a waste of our time, because apparently it's just mutants. And again, I guess it's because, Kevin Feige was like, well, I have to get the Inhuman thing in there, but he won't do Inhuman. So it's like, they could have just left it alone, man. All right. Also, then what's with the connection to Captain Marvel and her corner of the MCU? The X-Men are not Marvel Cosmic. They are their own category. There's Marvel Science, Marvel Cosmic, which Thor has already been lumped into as a space Viking, Marvel Mystic, and then Marvel Mutants, and to some degree, Marvel Young Avengers, with the Champions title too, where Ms. Marvel led that team. But Young Avengers, not Young X-Men. There are always Young X-Men because they're schooled. I really want my X-Men just the way I want them. That's the whole thing about the MCU. Getting the comic books the way they're supposed to be done. All right, I'm very concerned about the X-Men now. Also, Kamala Khan's whole thing is wanting to be an Avenger, but instead now she's going to be a member of the X-Men? Is that like her consolation prize? Are we not going to have X-Men? Are we just going to have all Avengers and some people just happen to be mutants? I mean, that's just going to make me barf. I mean, some X-Men are also Avengers, but very few of them. The X-Men are their own thing. And on that note, I've been afraid of this because Marvel Comics hasn't known what to do with the X-Men for a very long time. And I think that the comic books have been trying to get ahead of the MCU because I think they know that the MCU we're gonna get to them eventually. So first, the Marvel Comics struggled as how to mix the X-Men with the rest of the Marvel characters. Like X-Men versus Avengers was a mess of a storyline, really bad. And now in the comics, most recently, they've been turned into some kind of Inhumans, right? With like this royal family of Earth with a base on Mars. And when you think about that, damn it, they've already been turning them into Marvel Cosmic right under our noses this whole time. And I gotta tell you, while I liked what Jonathan Hickman did with the X-Men at first, it hasn't really worked out. I think it's not the X-Men. It's not the X-Men. The X-Men are a metaphor for discrimination and hate, from the civil rights movements of the 1960s when they were created, to the LGBT movement, and more. And while I get that Kamala Khan fits with that, due to the unfair persecution of Muslim communities in a post-9/11 world, it's just too much with all the other elements that have now added to her storyline. What about all the talk about Jinn? All right, are they all mutants? What about also the 10 Rings connection? which, by the way, Captain Marvel didn't recognize as Kree technology in that post-credit scene. So how does this all connect besides through Ms. Marvel? Does Ms. Marvel connect to every corner of the MCU and then kind of not to any at the same time because it's just too much? Whatever happened to Kevin Feige keeping it simple? Because this is a convoluted mess. All right, so on that note, let's talk about the post-credit scene. Do Kamala Khan and Carol Danvers switch places, or does Kamala shapeshift? I believe she shapeshifted, because that's one of the few things in the ending here that's comics accurate. But here's the rube. Nobody knows really about Kamala Khan's power set, so I don't think very many people, except for like diehard Kamala Khan fans, are like, oh yes, she can shapeshift. Also, what the heck about Mystique? It's so disrespectful. Another problem with the X-Men connection, and just at all. I mean, what? Mystique is the shapeshifter. When people are shapeshifting in the MCU, it's supposed to be Mystique. You're not supposed to be like, I'm not sure who that is. We'll have to just keep watching until hopefully they shapeshift into their original form. So anyway, I think that the reason that she crashed into the closet was so that Marvel could save money on VFX, which they're particularly guilty of doing with this show. Like a lot of times they would have a character watch Kamala Khan run off instead of us seeing her go off on her discs because they didn't want to pay for it. That's okay, I forgive them though, because they clearly spent a lot of money on the big finale fight here when Kamala Khan powered up all the way, and it was pretty cool. So I was happy that we got that. But anyway, you'll notice that when Carol Danvers appears, she has Kamala's power on her hands. And I believe she looks around the room, realizing what she's done, and that's that her obsession with Captain Marvel has led her to shapeshift. Did she grant herself a wish? That's more in line with what we've been discussing. Anyway, and this setup is obviously to lead into the Marvels coming out next year. So I guess Kamala will go and get help from just like Peter Parker gets help from Doctor Strange, Kamala will go to Captain Marvel. Kamala is so MCU Peter Parker as well, from tone and style to location, even down to being the only two characters in the MCU with secret identities. Although I don't know how anybody's supposed to fall for that domino mask. It's crazy. I have a problem with it in DC as well. But anyway, the Ms. Marvel connections continue. On that note, in the Ultimate Comics, Ultimate Spider-Man had a lot of interactions with the X-Men. In fact, a lot with Kitty Pryde. I believe they dated. I read those a while ago when they came out. I believe they dated. But and to the point where Kitty Pryde was spending more time with Spider-Man than she was with the X-Men. But anyway, so are the MCU X-Men, Spider-Man, and Ms. Marvel all going to collide and have a similar tone to their adventures? And where does that leave the Young Avengers? I just feel like the X-Men are going to get diluted and lose their identity. And I'm not happy about it, because I'm a big X-Men fan. And I've been very patiently waiting. All right. I'll wait longer if we just do it properly when we finally do it. No rush. Anyway, let's talk about Captain Marvel's new look. I love the fingerless gloves. Obviously, I'm like that's a relative of the thumb holes on sleeves. So I love those. Those look great. Although I feel that sadly Brie Larson has obviously taken a lot of the negative comments to heart about Captain Marvel and tried to glam up the character. And I think, you see that sometimes with ingenues in particular. You saw it happen to Emma Stone, Anne Hathaway first, then Emma Stone, then Jennifer Lawrence, even Margot Robbie to a degree. I think, a lot of ingenues will lose that quirkiness. Haley Steinfeld did it a little bit too, but she came back. Emma Stone came back too. I think they're like, I don't want to be quirky, I want to be sexy. And you're like, but people prefer quirky. And so I'm a little sad to see Brie Larson go down the same route. And I feel bad for anyone who drove her there. But she's going more supermodel than superhero. For instance, she's much thinner here, ditching any attempt at a muscular athletic build that she was going for in her previous appearances. I mean, what I've liked about Brie Larson's Captain Marvel so far has been her raw power. I mean, just how cool she is. I mean, that to me has been, I don't need her to be super glam. I thought she looked great. I mean, she was glowing. I mean, that was really cool. It's a bit odd to have a body positive superhero like Kamala Khan sitting next to a superhero that undergoes a change like that. But I do think Brie Larson looks very pretty. She looks great here. She looked great before, but she looks great here too. And I think Iman Vellani looks great. I think she looks very pretty in her new costume. Everyone has great hair. That's important to me. So we'll see how fans react. And if this new look gets Captain Marvel more fans, although I don't know what kind of message that would send. I mean, again, unusually sloppy for Marvel. Basically, I've never seen the MCU be so sloppy as it is in this season finale. And I feel like the MCU just has lost its mind trying to make Ms. Marvel happen at any cost. And I think maybe trying to fix Captain Marvel, some of the negativity towards that character. But I wouldn't let Brie Larson fix it. Look what happened when they let Harrison Ford decide the fate of Han Solo. This needs to be, don't lose control of your characters. I don't care what an actor has to say. And also, you know what? Ms. Marvel doesn't need any help. A lot of us thought Captain Marvel was going to show up earlier in the episode during the big showdown outside the school. But as many of you pointed out during the watch-along, when Captain Marvel didn't show, it was so much more satisfying to see Ms. Marvel take care of business herself. So cool. Way cooler than the X-Men's armor, although apparently my comparison in my last breakdown was very apt because that's the direction that we went in. But her ability to elongate herself with her armor, also a callback to her original powers in the comics, looked fantastic here. I loved that. Not too Green Lantern-y either, very clearly crystal-based powers. So I thought that was fantastic. The color of Cameron's crystals, by the way, right out of the comic. Also right out of the comic. Bruno's broken arm, which apparently I guess happened at the wedding. Using science to save the day at the school under siege. Nice Psycho reference as well. And the beginning of a romance between Nakia and Zoe, which is right out of the comic. Also, it was great to see Kamala get her costume from her mother. That was great. Very nice callback to her mother making her AvengerCon costume, which she rejected, but, established her mom's sweet sewing skills. Very nice callback also to go from her dressing as another superhero and looking in the mirror to finishing the show as her own superhero. Although then turning into the other superhero. Well, these messages are all over the place. I hope her mother also makes her new costume, or it's going to not be as cool that she ditches it. I'd be like, but your mom made that one. And she gets her superhero name from her father. I continue to adore the Khan family. They are so great. And I love that they are an active part of Kamala's new superhero life. Although I do feel a bit cheated out of seeing them discover her secret. It all happened so fast and mostly off camera. I was like, damn, I missed it. And it was also wonderful to see her community embrace her and protect her. Ms. Marvel not only puts out a positive portrayal of a Muslim superhero, but a Muslim family, Muslim history, Muslim romance. Kamala still has all her boyfriends in play, although I feel Cameron is literally unstable. I guess Kamala likes bad boys. Poor Bruno. Muslim women, that shot in the last episode of the 3 generations, I thought was really beautiful. I was like, can we get Aisha's ghost in here too, man? And then also the Muslim community. Ari and Moyad even representing, I'm so glad he showed up for the finale, he's even representing on the other side as one of the head figures at Damage Control. So this is just fantastic representation across the board. And I don't know, I feel making it the X-Men just undercuts all that. I mean, it's no longer just the Muslim community's own special thing. Like the Nord dimension was theirs. It was their own space. And now it's just the X-Men. I don't like it. So I liked most of the show, though, quite a bit. So what do you think of the Ms. Marvel season finale, and what do you think of these new developments? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.